it was the most painful thing. Like it hurt in every cell of my body, and like breathing hurt. But I just went again that week with him, and just felt a little bit of a buzz.
Another episode of With the Chiefs.
Wait. Man, I need more rest.
I hope I've got your last name right there.
It's a very good pronunciation.
You should know better than that now, Dom.
I know. And we are live. Welcome back to another episode of With the Chiefs. It's my favourite time of the week, and I hope it's yours too. This week we've got a humongous episode coming up. We've got with us Chris Ford joining us. I met Chris about a year and a half ago. Down at the 440 I met him. My first impressions were that he had this really strong sense of peace and wisdom about him. And as I've gotten to know him a little more, I found out that he's put a little more time in than most into figuring out who he is. And that really showed. But these qualities have translated pretty strongly over into his running as well. And he's very quickly picked up the sport in the few years that he's been doing it, completing multiple ultra marathons, including UTA 100 last year, where he almost gave up the sport after that race. But he's still here today. He's fitter and faster than stronger than ever before, and enjoying running more than he ever has. So welcome to the show, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me, lads. Don't think I've ever been called wise before. Maybe I'll give off those vibes. It's definitely not on the inside. Must be my English accent, Dom. You're just a sucker for
it. Yeah, it probably was. It might have been the accent. It had something to do with it. Or maybe I was just still half asleep in the morning.
Yeah, probably.
Usually we start off the episodes just sort of running through our training weeks and how they've been going. How's your running going at the moment? What have you been up to the last week?
Yeah, so I've tried to spend this first 6 months of this year just focusing on getting my body right. Like I've got a few niggles, especially my left leg. Pretty much every muscle joint in there isn't quite playing ball. So kept the load quite light so far this year. So hitting about 60 Ks per week. Turbo Tuesdays every week, a bit of a speed session. Normally a slow, easy one that I did on Thursday. Do a nice route from sort of Randwick to Bronte to Bondi and back. And then a little 2x 5K today. And maybe get on the trails tomorrow with Turbo.
Awesome. And yeah, so are you training for anything or just sort of getting fit and then go again from there?
Yeah, so I started picking up a couple of injuries at the back end of last year. So I thought I'd spend this first 6 months not really concentrating on races. So I've got a few at the end of this year. I think I'm going to try to do a fast mara at Melbourne in October. Then signed up to Cosy 100 in December. And then I've got a ticket still for Tarawera because it was postponed this year for next year in sort of early Feb. But I'm really keen. Like I feel I want to do the Tarawera miler just because the reward you get at the end, like you get this special stone when you finish it. It's like it means something in that area, and that just I really want to do it for that stone. So I'll have to see how the races this year go to see whether I sort of line up for that one.
Yeah, definitely. That's a few big races to train for in the future then. So I think it sounds like a pretty good approach. Just putting in the time to get your body right now. But I love that you just want to get that stone.
What happened with the injury? How did that come on?
So I've got an old sports injury back from when I used to play Union. I broke my leg and ankle in a couple of places, twisting. So my ankle has I never got full range of movement back.
Yeah.
And just because of that, like quite often I'll get really tight hamstrings and then my knee will start to hurt. So basically it's like my ankle, my knee and my hamstring, which is pretty much the whole of my left leg. So sometimes it can really stop me running. But I've been doing lots of work with the running room just to try to, I guess, get a bit more of a balanced body.
Yeah.
Sort of up the strength training as well this year, just to try and get that in a better place.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds pretty full on, to be honest. What strength stuff have they got you doing? anything very specific or?
Yeah, it's actually funny. So like, not really on the strength side, but it seems to be like just activating other muscles around like the injured muscle. So like for my hamstring, I have to do these ones that just target my glute, just like my bum. Like
Yeah.
just doing these like exercises that don't feel like they're doing a lot, but it's just meant to, I guess, take some of that stress away from the muscles that are a little bit tight.
Yeah.
And it definitely seems to be working.
Yeah.
Yeah, just sticking at that, see what happens.
Well, that's good.
But I guess I'll lose patience after a while and just start running.
Yeah. There's only, well, what were you're running 60 Ks a week at the moment. Is that a significant decrease on your normal load?
I mean, I don't really have a normal load because I'm still fairly new to running, but at the back end of last year, I was starting to hit about 100 Ks per week.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, since dropping my load, I actually feel like my fitness has actually improved. Like, I don't know whether I was just doing like junk miles or whatever, but like, especially over the short stuff, I've actually seemed to have seen actual progression this first 6 months, which was surprising, but definitely not complaining.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think I had a similar experience I think I've talked about it before, but getting coached by Sally, we focused a lot more on speed and significantly reduce the overall mileage, which has translated to, yeah, like you said, speed improvements, just because that's been more of the focus. So what we're learning is this is not always just a volume thing. So yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, what about Dom, training? What about you?
Yeah. For me, yeah, it was a bit of a strange week this week. It started off pretty strong. I was running the commute to work on Monday and Tuesday, but then I found out that Beck tested positive for COVID. So that was a bit of a spanner in the works. And I think just mentally, I started to like just become a bit of a hypochondriac, thinking every little symptom is COVID, but I'm still, negative and feeling fine. So I'm hoping I've got away with it, but I don't know. Some people live with someone with COVID and it takes them a few days until they get it. So I don't know, hopefully a couple more days, if I can just hang on, I'll be all right. But yeah, looking back on the week, it was still not a bad week. I think just mentally though, I thought, oh, this is shit. I don't know. And I was kind of tossing up like, should I be pushing it right now? Because I need to be healthy in case I do get sick, and just all these little, I don't know, thoughts running through my head all week. But yeah, I still managed to do 2 sessions. I did some 400s on Thursday, and then I did a 35-minute tempo on Friday. No, I did the 400s on Wednesday and Friday. So yeah, and then I did some gym sessions, and today is Saturday, and I did some hills. So yeah, I think it's going to still be not a bad week, but just that mental side of it has been interesting this week, and just being back in isolation and knowing like you can't go out. Like I think legally I could because I'm still negative and don't have any symptoms, but I'd feel like a bit of a I don't know, a galah kind of if I made someone else sick in the case that I did test positive or came down with anything. So yeah, it's just been a bit of a strange week for me, but still progressing along, and I don't think I've lost any fitness or have gone backwards in any way. So yeah, all in all, not a bad week.
What were the 400s like?
Yeah, it was a bit longer than 400. It's like 450 meters around a AFL field.
Yep.
And it was kind of weird. Like I went into the session not really knowing what the session was. I think I originally planned to do like 1K reps, and I just couldn't find anywhere to run with nice lights. So I decided to just go to the AFL field and do some 400s instead, because I don't know, I wasn't in the mood to run multiple laps for a rep. It just gets a bit boring sometimes, but it's good prep. There's the all-out mile with Under Armour coming up, and I think Turbo's got a team for that. So hopefully Chris will be down there doing that one as well with me.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of good prep for that.
He's put us in the elite category, Dom.
Oh shit. Oh, well, that's where we belong, mate. A couple of elite runners like us.
You do, definitely not me. I don't know what he's playing at.
But yeah, that's coming up. I think it's the 1st of June. It's a free event down at the SCG if anyone wants to come along. It should be a bit of fun. What about you, Smitty? How's your training week going?
Yeah, pretty good. Recovered after got a mild sickness, but no, it didn't take long to recover. I think I touched on it briefly in the previous episode. But training Monday was pretty easy. Tuesday we're back to that sort of faster stuff. So 8 by 1 minute 45 at as fast as I can handle, pretty much, which is good. I actually was I think I mentioned it. I missed doing that session, even though I hadn't done it for a little bit. So that's a sign maybe that I'm getting used to it, because I think we've talked about this before, Dom, but there's something crazy and painful but nice about running fast. So it's good to get back into those. I wasn't actually feeling that great. Like maybe it was a bit humid. I normally like to blame the humidity, but yeah, overall good session. Wednesday was easy, 60 minutes. Thursday was a bit of a different one. It was sort of in between threshold and a little bit faster. So it was 4 by 7 minutes. Call it a hard threshold. So it was sort of that pace between 5K and 10K pace. And yeah, it was hard, but 7 minutes is enough, like where you got about 3 minutes before it starts hurting because your heart rate's got to come up. But I enjoyed that session. I did it with Tobias, one of the guys from Delta. Yeah, which was really, it made a massive difference having someone to train with. Like, I think I would have done it maybe 5-10% slower if you didn't. If we weren't training together. And the paces, it's good not having pace on the watch. I ran faster than I thought, just following the power metrics. So
what were the paces?
The paces, I think for the first one was like 3. I mean, it's always generous with the next percents and running along that stretch around the bay. So you got to add a few seconds on, but it was like 3:16, 3:16s.
Oh, jeez.
3:12, and 3.
That is flying, mate. Yeah.
3:15s on the last one, but it was a 2K rep, so it's nothing outrageous.
That's pretty outrageous.
Well, you shouldn't have asked about the paces, Dom.
But that's good. You're fit.
Now I'm like, yeah, I should have just said 3:20, 3:30, so I surprised myself. But no, it was good. It was one of those sessions that were like pleasing to, have the workout sync to your phone and then check the paces after and be like, oh shit, I was much quicker than I thought. But if I was to benchmark that sort of session maybe 6 months ago, nowhere near running like that. So it's really, really nice to start seeing some of those benefits come through from doing well. The thing that I did notice was like towards the 4th rep, even though it was painful, the last 2 minutes, because I've been doing that speed, I was actually still able to hold good form and stay strong. Like I felt that, which was nice. So I think the shorter stuff is starting to pay off now.
Yeah, it's interesting, like how they kind of relate with each other.
Yeah, and mind you, that those paces are not like it's salt. Like it feels very solid. It's not cruisy at all. It was kind of just hanging on, trying to hang on for as long as you can, but got through it, which is good.
So then the next race, I think you said you were doing Wollongong, or?
Yeah, Wollongong in 2 weeks. Actually, mum's going to be joining and running the 5K, which is huge. Yeah, because she's also going to do, she's going to do Gold Coast 5K as well. So writing a bit of a program. She hasn't done any running, and
Nice.
yeah, and she hasn't done any running. Just starting to do. I hope I'm not going to get her injured or something like that. But she's done. I think we're doing like 1 minute of running and 4 minutes of walking to start off with, and cycling through that, and then I think it was like 20 minutes of that, sort of like a session, 2 days, and then a 40-minute one, 2 40-minute ones, like 1 minute on, 4 minute walk. Anyway, that's a bit of a sidetrack, but it's exciting to see mum getting into running. Yeah, it's actually really, yeah, it'll be fun for sure. Yeah, so Wollongong 10K. Wollongong 10K. I'm looking forward to that. Seeing, I don't know what the course is like. Though. Have you ever heard of that course?
No, did you do it, Chris, last year? Or?
No, I did Shell Harbour.
Yeah, right. Okay.
But yeah, I know there's like a really nice cycle path like along the beach that's all pretty flat. So I wonder if it goes out and back along there or something.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Yeah, so get to Sally program that in just to see where I'm at before Gold Coast, which will be nice to have another hit out. Whoever wants to join will be good to have some company. What time? Well, what's that? How does that sit with your schedule, Dom? You're not in the 10K sort of frame of mind at the moment, are you?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So do you know what date that would be?
5th of, I think it was like first week of June.
Oh no, I think that's the same weekend as this 6-hour race for me.
Yeah, for where I got to get that in my head that you're training for ultras, I think. But okay. What else? What else? Saturday today easy. Sunday have a bit of a geez, I promised myself I wouldn't ramble on about my training. But this is gonna be another monster debrief, so I'll just finish off Sunday, and we'll be talking about interesting stuff soon. So Sunday tomorrow is 3x6K so 3K is kind of ramping up. So it's like 3K at half marathon pace, 2K between half marathon pace and 10K pace, and 1K at sort of 10K, 5K pace. So it just gets quicker, and then 500 meter jog. So like not much rest. So
Yeah, wow.
I'll report back in to see how I go with that session. It's a bit of a monster.
Yeah, I've like, is it hard like mentally to do sessions like that? Like I feel like I would, I just wouldn't be able to fire myself up.
Well, the last one I had was the almost 12 by 1K, or the fartlek session, and it's pretty difficult to G yourself up. But I think there's sort of like there's a period where that you need to get over those early stages, maybe the first like 20 minutes where you're just regretting the fact that you have to keep going for so much longer, but you sort of get over. I would say you get over a certain point, and then it depends. It also depends on how you're feeling on the day. But I've only really done one monster session like that, which was the one we talked about. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and then some of the sessions leading up to the marathons. But yeah, it's pretty hard to G up. But luckily, Tobias will be joining tomorrow again, so that'll be fun. He's going to do like 28K and then jump in for 2 of those reps. So he's also getting ready for Gold Coast Marathon. So yeah, that's my debrief.
Very interesting.
But yeah, the sessions are going well. Training's going well. Seems like I'm getting faster. Don't want to get too ahead of myself, but that's where we're at.
It's good to hear, mate. Good to hear you up and about and enjoying your running.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess kicking off into this week's sort of guest interview, we've got Chris on. Chris, how'd you sort of like get into running? Like, where did it all start for you?
Yeah, so it's pretty much, I've just been running for 2 years, pretty much to the day actually. Started during lockdown 2020, the first one that we had. Like really random, like I did not envision myself ever running. Like I used to play rugby and tennis and all sorts of sports growing up, but running, just hated it. Like, unless I was chasing a ball, not for me. But um, one of my friends just like randomly invited me out for a run during lockdown. And obviously there was not a lot else to do, so I just went out with him. And I remember I couldn't even run like 200 meters without stopping. It was the most painful thing. Like, it hurt in every cell of my body, and like breathing hurt. But I just went again that week with him, and just felt a little bit of a buzz. But yeah, so that's how I got started in it. But running came to me like at a really like important time in my life. So I think I just like latched onto running as sort of a way to sort of get through a few things.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting you talk about like that pain, like even just starting off. I feel like that it doesn't matter how fit you get, everyone still experiences that same thing. Like, yeah, it never really changes too much. Sometimes you get a little bit faster,
Yeah.
but it's still the same thing, really.
Yeah, it's weird when people like ask why I enjoy running, and I'm like you just need to do it until that pain stops. Like, you do it enough, that pain goes away, and then you'll really enjoy it. And they're like, that sounds terrible. I definitely don't want to do that. But I'm like, there's so much good that other side. You just need to get there.
Yeah, no, that's so true. There is a when I remember when I started running, there's that initial period where it is misery. I think it was like for me just over a month where you're like trying to adapt.
Yeah.
Your whole body's kind of in shock just trying to adapt to running. What was your first? Did you then lock onto a race and how did you like sort of progress from there?
No, so I can sort of expand a little bit. So I started just running with my mate. We probably went out once or twice a week. But at that time, I was boozing pretty heavily. I was doing like lots of drugs at the weekend and trying to run. And like, just going back a step, that time in my life, I was going through like my mental health was like at an all-time low. I was going through a really, I guess, just rough patch in my life. And this had been going on for maybe a year or two. And like, as lots of people do, like, I was looking for a way to escape. So latched onto drink and drugs. But like, the more you latch onto something like drink or drugs, like the less of an escape that becomes, and the more like that becomes like a prison almost. And like, I just didn't see a way of, I guess, escaping that. And it got to a really, really rough time. Like, unfortunately, I got like a little bit addicted to drugs and just could not stop doing them. And I didn't really feel anything for 6 months to a year, other than just feeling either depressed or anxious or high or on a come down. Running was the first thing. Although it hurt, it was the first time like I'd felt something different to those emotions. Like, something, although painful, was actually a little bit raw and real. It's almost like a spark inside. So I just hung on to that feeling for a while and just kept going with my mate. And we go out once or twice or 3 times a week. But obviously, I did not see much improvement in my running performance because my weekends were so huge. Like, it'd be like peaks. I feel great on like the Thursday, then come the Monday, like I'd be in the same space. Unfortunately, things went on for a little bit longer, and it got real dark, and I ended up in a real dark space, and I actually ended up in hospital for a little while in a psychiatric ward. And when you're there, they try to help you figure out like an action plan for how you'll stay well when you leave. And part of that's things like seeing a drug counselor and an alcohol counselor and things like that. But they also look for things that are good in your life. And I think at that time, the only thing I could really talk to was the fact that I enjoyed running. But they realized that running alone, like, is not really enough to, I guess, make you well. So they helped me try to figure out how I could like tag into communities. And at that time, I had a friend who I'd seen had done the 440 before, and like, I could see that looked like quite a healthy community. So I texted him and said, hey, can I come to this community next week? Went to the 440, and like, that was the first time like something really did change inside me. And it didn't help me get sober straight away, but over the course of about 3 months, I was able to change my lifestyle from one of being like very negative and like like it was not going in a good way, to actually having positive action in my life, and like having the 440, which is a run club at 5 a.m. at Bronte, like every week as like a reset, no matter what went on. So that's how I started tagging in sort of like different run groups. And then gradually I was able to stop boozing and stop doing drugs. And now I run loads, and I haven't drank or done any drugs for about 19 months. So life has really done a 180. And I'm not just saying this, but running like literally saved my life. If I hadn't have found it then, I really don't know where I'd be now. So that's how I got into running, and that's why it's still such an important part of my life.
Yeah, definitely. Like that's such like an incredible story, and it's thanks so much for sharing that with us. I think like I don't know, for myself, like I've had little moments in my life where things are going to shit, and it's so hard to just like pull yourself out of that. So to hear like the strategies that you used and the advice that you got, I think that that's like something that a lot of people can resonate with. And I think that the 440s, it's a really great run and great like community. I can remember the first time I went there, it was just something special. Like there's a really good vibe about it. And it's awesome that like people just from anywhere can come down and do it, no matter what your headspace is or what you're going through. I feel like it's really accepting, and there's a lot going for it, definitely. But that's such a crazy story, but it's
incredible.
Really inspiring. And I feel like running kind of can use those sort of dark moments that you have in your life sometimes, and fuel you, especially like in ultras when you need to push through that pain. I think that it's interesting sport. It sort of attracts a lot of people like that who have gone through these like really rough moments in their life and got themselves out of it. And then during an ultra, when you're putting yourself through this pain, you can kind of reflect back on that and know that you can push through this, and you've dealt with things that that are a lot harder than what you're doing now. So it's interesting to see how that's sort of translated into what you're doing now and where you're at now.
Yeah. What I would say, Dom, is like when I first started running, I was fueled purely by like pain. And running at that time was actually a lot easier than it is now. Like it was easy to get through like long ultras because like I was fueled by pain. Now like I'm super happy and like super chill, and like now I actually have to work on being motivated to get out of bed and do these runs. So it's interesting how it flips. What I also saw this week, I don't know if you saw it posted on Instagram, doctors like GPs in Australia are now prescribing people to go to park runs when they come in saying that they're suffering with mental health, instead of reaching straight for antidepressants. So people go to the doctor and they'll prescribe them like 10 park runs to go and do, which I think is just like such a cool and will probably be effective tool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, having that persistence, like you said, going to the 440 every week, that's like a pretty big undertaking, getting up at, I don't know, 4:30 in the morning to start running at 5 a.m. or whatever. Like that's really impressive. So when did you end up doing your first 100K then?
I did it probably 6 or 7 months into running. So it was probably February the following year. I was just looking for something to do because at that point I was probably still trying to like build a community of like friendships out. So it was like the holiday period at work. So I was just looking for something to train for. So just decided to go and run 100Ks round Sydney. I think I did the 7 Bridges. I ran out there. Hadn't really planned the route, so I got back to Sydney with still about 60Ks to do. Didn't really know where to go, so I just went to Sydney P and started doing loops, which was probably not the I guess the most thrilling of 100Ks to do, but it was good to do. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just had like a little Camelback. I must have had about 12 gels packed and not much else, but got it done, and it was an experience, that's for sure. But that really fueled my love of endurance running over, I guess, speed stuff. Just the mental journey and growth that you go through. when you've done 100 Ks or whatever's relatively long, everything else seems easy. If you have a stressful day at work, you just think back to this thing that you thought you definitely couldn't do. Everything else seems a little bit easier.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think I've talked about it before, but after like I ran that 12-hour run that I did, it was just like life changing. Like
Yeah.
I came out of it with like a whole different perspective on how I fought, and just I think I was just a lot more at peace with myself. And going into it, I wasn't really expecting that. But yeah, it's funny how running can teach you so much, and that can translate into your life in other areas if you let it. So I guess like at the time then when you did that 100K, you weren't really doing much training or anything, or it sounds like it was just sort of mentally getting through it. Or how did the training look like coming into that? And
no specific training really, Dom, other than just getting out around. I can't even remember what shoes I was wearing. They were probably just a pair of, I guess, your classic Nike gym trainers. I'd go to the 440 once a week, but during the week I didn't have much of a plan. I engaged with a running coach, I think 3 weeks before the 100K, but realised there wasn't much impact they could have in that short a period of time. So did not continue that relationship further, even though they were a great coach, but it didn't really make much sense. So in hindsight, it wasn't the best idea, but very glad I did it because, as I say, like you just do something that previous to that you thought was pretty impossible. I had run a 60K in November the previous year. I tagged in with Dan Price on one of his, I think he was going for a triple marathon. I made it 60Ks to Palm Beach. So I had sort of been around a few people who had run long distances. And so that sort of fueled the fire inside.
Definitely. I think like, was UTA, was that the first sort of ultra trail race that you'd done? Or were there any races before that?
It was the first ultra trail race I'd done. I had ran one race prior to that, which was Shell Harbour Half Marathon, just to get a qualifying time to be able to be in a slightly higher start group.
Yeah, and it seems like you were a bit more knowledgeable about your training going into that. How was your mindset sort of different, and what changed in the lead up to that?
Yeah, I guess I joined the Turbo Runners in, I guess, February that year. And as soon as I joined, that's when I discovered there was a group of Turbo Runners that would go up to the mountains each weekend. So we just started tagging in pretty much every Sunday. We were going up to the Blue Mountains and doing some pretty meaty runs up there. And like I could learn off the likes of Turbo and Sally, and I think we even saw Pat Mack up there a few times, and just soak in some of their knowledge. So it's a bit more knowledgeable, and I guess how to fuel yourself, how the fact that you didn't have to run up hills. Like I'm very glad I learned that before the race. Otherwise that would not have been good if I was trying to run up every hill at UTA. And I'd just done a bit more trail specific training. Like it's just so different. Like you use all those small little stabilizer muscles. If I hadn't done training leading into UTA, it would have been, I guess, even tougher than it was going through. But also my goal for UTA was literally just to finish. And like when you don't have any sort of pressure on yourself, it's a lot easier just to, I guess, for me anyway, to have a positive mindset going into those things. So I knew there was no way, unless I had a real bad injury, that I was not going to make it.
Yeah, I think that's a great attitude to have, like just to finish the race. Like sometimes I think everyone gets caught up on, I want to run this time or run this pace or do whatever. Whereas, if you the goal is just to finish the race, like you're going to finish the race, and I think that's so important to be able to see things through like that. I can remember like there's been a few races where I've pulled out, and the second that I have, I'm like, oh no, why did I do that? That was stupid. So I think that's a really good mindset to have, and I think I don't know, it kind of ties in with life. Like you just have to stay in the race and just grind through those moments when you've got your doubts and keep on pushing through. So you also working in HR at a company there. Like how does that sort of translate with your work-life balance and your running and everything else that's going on?
Yeah, so going back a step, obviously I'm English, so I don't work in HR. I do what every English person in Australia does. I work in recruitment, Tom.
Of
So
course.
I'm every stereotype of English in Sydney. Yeah. I work in recruitment and I live in the eastern suburbs, so like it's mandatory. You don't get your visa unless you tick both of those boxes. Um, so I do. I changed my job at the start of this year. I've joined a startup, and they actually do something really cool. They create, we are trying to create cultured meat. So we're trying to grow meat from animal cells rather than the animals themselves, which hopefully will be a very sustainable food source for the world, but also the ethical side of not needing to kill animals. I'm a vegan, so I was very enthusiastic about working for this company. But the difference between working for, I guess, a startup compared to corporates that I've been at previously is like they're very set up to help you work in whatever way you want to work. So I have complete flexibility over my schedule, where I work from, the hours I work, if I want a big break at lunch to do a run, if I want to come in a little bit later, if I want to finish a bit earlier to make it to turbo runners. So I guess I've been very lucky to find a company that is, I guess, flexible around my schedule, as long as I obviously do good work, but it just makes it a little bit easier, especially at the back end of this year when I'm going to start ramping up training again. I think if I was working just a standard corporate job, it might be quite tough.
Yeah, definitely. That's sounds like you're onto something there. Like, and yeah, I think the English guy coming over, living in the eastern suburbs, working in recruitment, it's very stereotypical of you. But you also mentioned that you're a vegan. How long have you been a vegan for?
Yeah, so I guess I made lots of changes in my life at one time, because it was also about 2 years ago that I went vegan. Back when I was boozing, there was no way I could have gone vegan, because my go-to hangover meal was about 10 a.m., a large Big Mac meal, chicken nuggets, and a cheeseburger. Like I could not shift that when I was on a hangover. So yeah, I probably had that about 2 or 3 times a week at one point. It was pretty excessive. But since I guess no longer having hangovers, I'm able to make more better choices for myself, and I'm a big animal lover myself. So being able to live those actions and not contribute to suffering of animals is definitely my driver.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that you do like a bit of dog sitting as well, is it? Or how's that like love of animals kind of come about? And where did that all sort of start from?
Yeah, I do a bit of dog sitting. It's not great as a monetary source, but it's great for, I guess, the soul. I discovered there are apps, like I'm on an app called Mad Paws, and people will pay you a small amount of money to look after their dogs, which just blew my mind, because I would literally pay people to let me look after their dogs, but they're actually paying me to look after their dogs. It's like, it's the best thing ever. During lockdown 2020, my hours went down to 3 days a week, so I had all this spare time. So I just created a profile and just started looking after like 2 or 3 dogs a day, doing like 30,000-40,000 steps, just walking around Sydney with random people's dogs, which was, I guess, kept me busy and also I guess a little bit happier in a time where you couldn't really do much else. It also gave me a reason to, I guess, not be locked in when dog walking was one of those approved things you could be doing.
How'd you get that? How'd you get that idea? That's a creative way to escape the lockdowns for sure.
I had already started dog sitting,
Ah.
but when I saw that loophole, I was definitely taking advantage of it.
Oh, that's good. If you don't mind, if I can go back to the 100K you did, what was it? What was it like doing? What was it like doing that, especially after not having much structured training? Was it just a grind for most of it? Maybe just if you could talk to the experience as a whole, doing that race. What was it like during?
Yeah, so I was probably good for about 30 Ks. Like I felt fine, and then probably the last 70 Ks, which obviously is well over 50%. I mean, 70% left was a bit of a struggle. And I probably ground it out to about 80 or 90 Ks. Like I got through it okay, but I just remember that last 10K when I was just going around 70p. again, it goes back to like every cell in your body hurting. Like I could not force myself to run more than like 50 meters without having to stop, take a breath, and then run another 50 meters, which is, it's like literally every cell in your body hurts, and you can't quite figure out because you've got the fitness because you've not been running that quick. Your muscles are still working. It's just like your body is screaming against you to stop. Um, the only thing that drove me was just like that internal want to finish the 100K. Like, I think when you're going for those long distances, unless you really want to do it yourself, it's not for Instagram, it's not for Strava, unless you want to complete it. Like, I would have dropped out at 50, 60K. So I guess, although my training had been not great, I was mentally strong enough to finish it, which, having done a bit of road running and a bit of trails and long stuff, it's definitely skewed towards sort of mental strength for anything endurance for sure.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's a good point around you really have to want to do it like Dom. I remember you talking about the fact that you were just so G'd up for your race that you wouldn't have been able to do it without A, the support,
Yeah.
and B, the fact that you're kind of mentally all in on doing that. So it's not something like, for example, I could go out and be like, I'm gonna run 80K just because, just to test myself. If that's something, like you said, I'd give up at that 40, 50K point, because I don't think what you're describing, I'm not 100% sure I've gone through in my running. Maybe at the like last 5K of a marathon, but yeah, it's a crazy world, ultra running, by the sounds of it. But yeah, it's crazy how far you can push yourself. Like, so how much farther you can push yourself than you think. Like,
Yeah. It's also as much as it hurts, like even Dom yourself, like you started doing ultras like last year, right? And like as soon as you started, it seemed like your whole mind shift changed from, okay, I can actually focus on this stuff because there is something, like you get some maybe different, maybe something more from this endurance stuff. I don't know, but it's like once you have that bug, I don't think many people look back to the shorter stuff consistently. There's something in it.
what is so after you finish the 100K? What's it like the next 2 days, just in general, emotionally and also physically?
Yeah, I struggle physically. Like, I'm in my mid 30s now, so like I'm getting to that stage where whether I've been running or not, like my knees hurt when I bend down to pick stuff up and sit down. Like I do that as I get up off my chair. So like my, my joints and stuff are already hurting. But normally after like a big long run, probably anything 30 plus Ks on the trails, like my groins will just be on fire and I can't really sleep at night. And I remember after UTA 100, just being in like this daze. We were staying in like this hostel in a 4-person dorm, but it was really small, and we I think had one person sleeping on the floor as well, so there wasn't a lot of room. I just remember being in like one of those daze states where like you're not quite sure whether you're awake or asleep, but you're definitely not fully asleep, and it's just like that for a while. But the pain after you've slept is actually, it's quite nice. It's quite a nice reminder of what you've been through. And the mental side is just all upside. You feel great. The only thing I would say is after you've had something in your target for so long, sometimes there's a bit of a lull after. I don't know whether you've experienced this as well, but when you aim for something for so long, sometimes you can get almost like post-race depression, and just feel flat for a little while. Which I certainly experienced after UTA for a little while.
Yeah, crazy. So we've got Beck just crawling around on the floor, trying not to get on the camera.
Trying to avoid the camera.
I wonder what
was like, what's going on here, Dom? What is going on? I was like, no, but I think the post race thing is is a real. I've experienced that, especially around like a main race, around a marathon, especially if you hit the time you wanted. You could kind of you just start searching. It's funny how quickly you start searching for the next race as well.
Yeah.
You're sort of on a high. I felt you're on a high, and things are just like you feel. Even though I remember after a marathon, my legs were just absolutely crushed. Definitely not as crushed than after an ultra, but you feel it's almost like you feel light, like just like your mood is light and things are just I don't know, you're just chirpy and stuff like that. But then you just like, oh, okay, now what? It's like the very human, like now what do I do sort of thing.
It's when that last kudos hits your Strava. That's when that's when the endorphins go. Just gonna turn the light on.
Yeah, I feel like it's like you go from you've got this big goal in mind and you're the fittest you've ever been to just before the race starts. Then you just absolutely spend it all on the race, and afterwards like you can't even walk. And I feel like I found that really challenging to deal with. It's like because you still identify as the fit guy who can just go out and run and do whatever, but you can't even walk the next day or the next week or the next couple of weeks, and you're back to square one, which I found that really challenging, like mentally and physically, because your body and your mind aren't on the same page.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially when you try to do a tempo run after the marathon, and it's just like anyone that gets scared of like losing their fitness. I'm scared of like now that I'm fit, I'm like, oh, what if I get injured? What if I don't know? Maybe I'm not that fit. I don't know. But running, it's a weird one. It's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like I think it's weird like how much we can just attach to ourselves and to being the runner and all of that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing, Dom. Like we seem to place so much self-worth on who we are as a runner. Like if you go to a run club and you're the fastest person there, maybe you feel like a little bit bigger about yourself. But if someone comes in there faster, do you feel like you're not as worthy because you're not the fastest person there as well? And like as I said, I'm going to aim for Melbourne Marathon this year, which will be my first time having a target time. And like part of me is really worried if I miss that time by like a minute, am I going to feel terrible because of 60 seconds? Like, are you really going to let 60 seconds define who you are as a person, like on the inside? Like, it's such a fine balance, and I'm not quite sure I'm mentally prepared for, I guess, not hitting a target.
That's interesting. I one thing I noticed is no matter how much I can sort of have an internal dialogue about, oh, it doesn't matter, or oh yeah, just because you didn't run this time, yeah, don't let it. But it still bothers me. Like I can't. Like if you got in your head, all right, I'm targeting this pace for this race, and then even if even if you do maybe even if you hit a PB, but your expectation doesn't match your pre-race, like your pre-race expectation doesn't match the actual time. Yeah, it's still I don't know. I can't convince myself logically that it's okay. You're still fit. You can run. It's all good.
I feel like in the shorter races like that is like definitely plays a huge factor. Whereas if like in the marathon or anything longer though, you have to put so much time and effort in just to getting through the race that you're kind of satisfied enough with yourself regardless of the result. Like I don't know, I'm just sort of leaning on when I tried to run 2:30 and I ended up running 2:32. Like I didn't have any burning desire to start training for a marathon and trying to run 2:30 again. I was like, oh no, that was like a great effort and I trained so hard for that. I can kind of hang my hat on that and step away from it for now. But yeah, there's definitely still some sort of little bit of disappointment, but I feel like the marathon is such a long distance and such a grueling distance that even just getting through it, you're still sort of pretty content with yourself. Same as like an ultra, but shorter distances, you do, I feel like, kind of kick yourself a bit more.
Yeah, Yeah, even that park run, Dom, we recently did, where I ran a PB. I had in my head that I could potentially run sub 16, and I was nowhere near that. I was satisfied, but still subconsciously I was like, hmm, like just a bit disappointed, which is weird. It's weird. Overall, obviously, it's a positive outlook, but it still plays on your mind a little bit. But I think, like Chris was saying with the longer distance stuff, it's just there's something different about pushing yourself to that limit and not focusing on time. Like the whole thing is you become proud of, well, this is what it sounds like, at least I haven't experienced this, but it seems like you become proud of just how much you left it all out there.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed this, Dom, but Strava, like when you do like lots of elevation, you both probably know this, but like especially in the trails, like you do loads of elevation, then it puts the elevation on the main screen. Your time's just gone, and like that's such a better way of looking at it because like it's just gone. Like no one's even judging your time. It's just the elevation that's the focus, and I'm like happy when Strava does that for me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Strava, I get caught up all the time in Strava, and also just comparing. Definitely paces can be which is why I'm somewhat happy not having pace on the watch, just because it can affect your mid-run performance as well. Like it can cause some
Mm.
negative thoughts to come through even when you're training. You're like, oh, not doing as well as I thought. So, do you guys ever find that as well?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, especially coming from like a track background, it was all about hitting splits around a track, and yeah, if just mentally it was so tough because if you're like 1 or 2 seconds slower than what the prescribed sort of time was, you just feel like, oh shit, like that was a terrible session when that's not really the case. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a bit of a mind game trying to get all of that right.
I have to remind myself that I'm not in the Olympics sometimes. Like my times are like relatively like it really does not matter. Like I'm getting fitter like just by enjoying myself. Like just get out of
Yeah.
my own head and like just enjoy the process is like the main thing, and just like it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I'm not going to be telling my grandkids about running I don't know a sub 29 minute of the 440. Like it really does not matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah,
That's a good
100%.
point. Yeah.
I think, yeah, definitely easy to, yeah, to make it bigger than Ben Hur, especially those Strava runs. But you will look back on your races, um, which is which is nice, which is nice.
Mm.
Yeah. I guess like yeah, that whole sort of running identity sort of wrapped up together. When you got injured after UTA, did you have to take some time off, and how did you sort of mentally and physically cope with that period?
It's a really good question, actually. And I probably mentally didn't handle that injury period very well. Like I went into like I just had no tools. Like I hadn't built anything else up in my armory apart from running. And that's actually one thing. Like 2 years in, that running is now part of my life. It's not my life. Like it's a really important part, but it's just one of the things that I do. Looking back, I've probably been injured 3 times now. What I actually find is every time I get injured, I discover something else in my life or make a connection that I wouldn't have done if I wasn't injured. So, for example, after getting injured at UTA, I was going to the 440 and just walking it. And there was this girl that I know, and I was walking a couple of laps with her, and she was training to become, I can't remember what it's called, but not yoga, but one of those other ones, like a teacher. So she offered to give me a few free sessions. So I went over there and got the sessions off her, but then got to know someone else and build a relationship that I wouldn't have done unless I was injured. Then the second time I got injured, someone introduced me to meditation, something that I wouldn't have explored if I hadn't have got injured. Now I meditate twice a day, and it's a really important part of my life. So I guess in the moment, and this is the funny thing, when I'm injured, I feel like shit. When I'm uninjured, I look back and I'm glad that I have been, because I've learned something else, which is, it's not a way to live, because I can't give any advice about how to get through an injury. All I can say is that you'll probably discover something else that will be beneficial for you in the long run.
Yeah, wow. Can we talk about meditation? Because it's something I started recently, and I'm curious, how do you find that? How's that sort of impacted your life, and maybe running as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it was through the 440 and some of the connections are made there. But I went to a place called Bondi Meditation Center. It's a really cool place, and they teach Vedic meditation, which is a certain meditation technique, one where you have a mantra. You have to pay a few bucks. I think it's like $800 to $1,000, so it's quite expensive, but it's like a 3-day course, and they give you a mantra. They teach you how to meditate, and also the really cool but weird thing is you have access to your teacher for the rest of your life and theirs, which to me just blows my mind, because like I could be 70 and I can ring my meditation teacher up and ask her for some hints, which just like, it just does not seem right to me that I can do that. But anyway, so they teach you like this method of meditation, which is a mantra, and the mantra allows you to grasp onto something, which then in effect allows you to let go, which doesn't make any sense. But basically it's if you are someone with a very busy mind, which I used to be, this is a way of getting to a deeper stage of meditation. You go into like a flow state. So now I meditate very consistently twice a day for 20 minutes, once in the morning, once in the evening. And I find that now I, as a person, am able to just, I guess, live a bit more in the moment, and also allow a bit of time between something happening and me reacting. And to be fair, all you need is like a second or two to sort of have a buffer so you don't react. And now I'm just, I guess, a generally more calm person. Also, funny enough, when I went to that meditation course, I was quite dismissive. I said that running was my meditation, and that I almost didn't need meditation because running gave me enough. What I've discovered is running is, as much as you can get into a meditative state, it isn't quite as relaxing and deep as meditation is itself. So I'd really recommend Bondi Meditation Center, getting a mantra, and I guess giving it a go. The thing is, much like running, anyone you speak to who meditates bloody loves meditation, so there must be something in it. So that's what made me go into it.
I'm wondering how that did, because I think I'm 27 days into just using an app, and it's pretty interesting. It's not until you sit down. It's only for 10 minutes, but it's not until you sit down and sort of close your eyes and just are forced to watch sort of what's coming into your consciousness, like the thoughts arising, sensations, all these sort of things are not. The biggest thing for me is when thoughts arise, to not identify too strongly with them. Like, that's not, I think a lot of the problems I've gotten to in the past is identifying with negative thoughts and believing that's part of your, that's you. But it's realistically, these thoughts are coming and going throughout the whole day. You're basically talking to yourself like a nut job, constantly, and it's through that like just 10 minutes of focus and like attention on what's happening, where you can realize, hang on, you don't get as like drawn into it. Like you said, there's a gap between, you can realize there's a gap between stimulus and response, which is I'm pretty new to it, but it's crazy valuable for work life, just life, like just your interactions with people, just to take a step back. And it's cool. I like it.
Yeah, just and what they teach you in Vedic meditation is that when you're in that real peaceful zone, your body is starting to bring that stress up. But when you're having those thoughts, that's your body processing the stress out of your body. So it's actually a good thing to have these thoughts or feel a certain way in meditation. Like that's your body releasing stress, which is great. Then if you do it consistently, your body releases this stress that it's had in its body for decades, and you will just be a much less reactive person. We all know, like when you're stressed, like you react and you bite. If you can let go of your stresses, you're going to have a much higher tolerance to stresses in your life.
I like, because what I used to, I'm not sure if you found this as well. What I used to, before I started, I would get mixed up. You're trying to get rid of the thoughts, or you're trying to like suppress something, whereas you kind of, it's not so much about like these things are going to happen. You're going to have these negative emotions and whatnot, regardless. It's more just realizing that it passes pretty quickly, which is interesting to learn. How long is the practice for you per day?
Two 20 minutes sessions. 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay, cool. Dom, have you tried meditation?
Not really. When I was like in high school during the HSC, I used to just, I don't know, weirdly, I kind of just got onto hypnosis and
Right.
just figured like, oh, that seems like a pretty cool, interesting thing. And I thought like, it's so weird that people can get hypnotized. Like I thought like that was just insane. Like how can you let like that even happen? So yeah, I kind of got into that a little bit and would do like self-hypnosis stuff. And I found like that's very similar to meditation. And that helped me with like, I was going through, I think during the HSE is really stressful. So I'd take like, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes and do like a little self-hypnosis session and would just come out of it feeling incredible, so relaxed and like just ready to go and continue on with my day. And I feel like, yeah, in the lead up to races now, I still try and do that if I'm like a bit uneasy or can't sleep or whatever. But I don't practice it as routinely as I probably should. And I haven't probably looked back into it as much as you guys or someone who regularly does meditation.
Do you want to try and hypnotize us now, Dom?
Yeah.
We might have been hypnotized this whole time.
But I think it's pretty crazy that like, I don't know, your brain can kind of go into all those different states and how that sort of just plays out into the rest of your life.
I found yeah, because I've had a bit of a break from alcohol as well, just because I was getting pretty carried away. But I think meditation is another one of those things that allows you to see, like Fridays and Saturdays used to be one of those times where you just get this overwhelming sense of, I want to go out.
Let some steam off.
Yeah, let some steam off, all those sort of things. And I mean, yeah, your story's been just incredibly impressive and inspiring in terms of just overcoming that deep hole you can get yourself into. But yeah, just realizing that after time it sort of passes. I think at the 3 or 4 month point, it started to fall away a little bit, the craving and the temptation. And I'm not sure how long it's because I've been conditioned. I've always been like sort of, I definitely like to go out and drink and stuff like that. And it was getting to a point where it was sort of binge drinking a little bit too much. And it was interfering with training and life in general. But it did take a good 3 to 4 months to stop. And you don't even realize, like I never really realized that it was a craving and it was pushing me in that direction until I started meditating and actually seeing, how these urges arise. I mean, it's there, but it's hard to stop. Did you find, I mean, you don't have to go into too much detail, Chris, if you don't like, but How long did it take you before you sort of stabilized a little bit in terms of, not wanting to go out and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably still a journey I'm on now.
Yep. Yep.
Just the time between those cravings gets less, like the time between gets more and more.
Yep.
But like, I think drink and drugs or sex or gambling or shopping, like it's all just, normally it's an escape from something. Like you're trying to escape some sort of reality in your head, which is fair enough. But I think with running, it wasn't running that stopped me drinking and drugging. It was the community that came with running. Like I never really understood what community meant. Like I knew the word and knew sort of what it meant, but I never felt community. There's something magical in the running community. I don't know whether it's just the people I've been round or it's Sydney, but like running either attracts good people or it turns people good. I don't know which one it is, but like I was just empty when I first turned up to my first run club, but I was able to I had my hood up, I didn't chat to anyone, did the run, and by the end, like I had a little bit inside to have a conversation. Over time, like I built such good relationships up, like with really good people who I've got their back, they've got mine, that like I don't need to escape from anything anymore. And that's really from community. So although this is a running podcast and I think we probably get a lot of that from running, it can really be anything for someone. It's just finding for you what works and makes you not want to escape your reality anymore.
Yeah, thinking about it that way is definitely you're trying to, for me at least, was trying to escape or just change your state of mind drastically. Like you just want to, yeah.
It's interesting. I feel like the word community is, I don't know, it's kind of got a funny sort of
woo-woo connotation.
Yeah, I think a lot of people sort of think about it in a way that, it's sort of lost its actual meaning. And I think, the way you talk about it is what it should be, though. But I feel like it can be kind of one of those buzzwords that people just throw out there every now and then. But I think that it is a very important part of life. And I think that everyone needs to live with some sort of community or some sort of deeper relationships in their lives. Like that's what makes us human in a way, I think. So I think that's a really good point.
We've gone deep on this podcast, guys. It's been
wow.
This is it's funny because running ties into so many. You can't isolate it, and that's, I think, why we feel so strongly about running, is it can have these life-changing characteristics. Like, you can't underestimate how much of an impact. Obviously, Chris, you've described exactly what can happen if you just embrace it. But the community side of thing is can be overlooked a little bit, and like you're saying, it's such an important part. Because running is one of those things you do share with people. Like if I started running on my own without Dom, I don't think it would have, like, you got the element of you're doing it with a close friend, and then you can sort of, everyone loves to chat about running and benchmark where you're at and all those sort of things. It's something that I think Kipchoge, or they love to say, it's a team. They emphasize it's a team sport, which it really, when you think about it, sounds a bit ridiculous because obviously it's you against you. But from the community aspect, it is a team. Like we're all invested in each other's journeys to a certain degree. Like we all, in running communities, we tend to care that, oh, you got a PB. It's not about time. Like the time's irrelevant. It's the time relative to how you and your friends are doing, which is the inspiring part.
Definitely. I guess starting to wrap up then. Every episode we've asked all the guests that have come on what their favourite race was. What's your favourite race, Chris, and why?
Yeah, so obviously an avid listener of the podcast, so I knew this question was going to come up. But I actually don't have I've had three races. I've had Shell Harbour half marathon, UTA 100, then I did Bear Creek. I actually honestly didn't really enjoy any of those races. Shell Harbour just felt very competitive. It was my first road race, and I think I did a 5k PB on the first 5k and just struggled through the rest of the 15k, which is horrendous. Very turbo runners of me. UTA 100, like, I just felt a bit sick the whole race and didn't really enjoy it. I think I will in future enjoy sort of ultra trails. And Bear Creek just went horribly for me, and like I really had to battle my ego on that one because I lost to someone I didn't think I would lose to.
Yeah.
And I definitely did battle with how I felt about myself then. I was definitely going to quit running after that, but still going. So in all seriousness, I love every single run I do during the week, whether it's with turbo runners on my own. Like, I've never not enjoyed a run. I'm yet to enjoy a race, but I'll see whether I do this year.
That's a good answer. Yeah.
That's a way to flip that question on its head for sure.
Sounds like Arden's got a bit of headspace in your mind, but yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for coming on there, Chris. Like, yeah, it's been such an awesome conversation with you. I didn't really expect it to go this way. I wasn't sure, what we were going to talk about, but yeah, I think it's been a really insightful episode, and I think that there are a lot of learnings for anyone that listens. So yeah, thanks once again for coming on.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Chris. I will say also thanks for sharing your experience as well, specifically, just because, I mean, it's to hear that for someone that might be going through that. I mean, we don't have a lot of listeners, but you just never know if someone's going through a dark patch in their life. To hear how you've sort of navigated that and just come through that and how running's helped you is very was inspiring for me to hear and for other people. So thanks for sharing and thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure, lads. And thanks for finishing at 5:20. It's 10 minutes till the Sharkies game, so happy days.